Hi, I'm Jess, and welcome to Spooky Movie Club. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Spooky Movie Club. This is the second week of Community Choice Month, and I'm really excited to discuss this one. We're going to be discussing Misery, so if you need to pause and grab your drinks or your popcorn. I'm going to read the back of the box, but if you want to skip ahead, I'm going to leave timestamps below. Okay. Misery. This is the special Shout Factory cover, Scream Factory cover. They're the same company, right? Yeah, they're the same. They're part of the same. And this is the original cover. What do I like better? Well, I just noticed on this cover, this is a skull. There's a skull in the back there. She's getting ready to hobble. But I think I like the original cover. It's like more eerie and desolate. Okay, so it's a Stephen King novel, but not set in Maine, surprisingly. Okay. Novelist Paul Sheldon doesn't remember the blinding blizzard that sent his car spinning off the road, but he will never forget Annie Wilkes. James Caan and Academy Award winner Kathy Bates star in the bone-shattering thriller Misery, adapted from the novel by Stephen King. As Paul recuperates from his injuries in the secluded cabin of his benefactor Annie, he begins to discover that beneath the seemingly kind and naive exterior of his self-described number one fan lurks a mind that is cunning, unhinged, and bent on keeping her favorite writer as her personal prisoner for the rest of his cock-a-doodle life. Adapted by two-time Oscar-winning screenwriter William Goldman and directed by Rob Reiner, who did Stand By Me and The Princess Bride I Love The Princess Bride, also Stand By Me. Misery is considered by critics and fans, number ones and others, to be among the greatest horror thrillers of all time. Revisit this classic tonight with your friends. After all, misery loves company. Let's see what the front says. Paul Sheldon used to write for a living. Now he's writing to stay alive. Interesting, the thoughts of how it was considered one of the greatest horror thrillers of all time. We'll get into what I think about it. Let's get into my thoughts. Okay, so my thoughts on Misery. I thought it was a good film. I loved the characters. I thought the actors were amazing. Kathy Bates was awesome in this role as Annie. But I thought Paul was played really well. Annie, the sheriff especially. I loved the sheriff and was so upset when he got a hole blasted in him. But I loved all the characters, that they were all very interesting. And especially the sheriff, but the whole film in general had a very Twin Peaksy vibe to me. This was made in 1990, and the pilot, I believe, was shot in 88 or 89. Shot in 88, came out in 89, around there. So they were all around the same time. But the cabin that Paul stays in when he was writing his book, very Great Northern-ish. The character of the sheriff reminded me a lot of a Twin Peaks character, even his wife. And even just the whole town itself. It's a small town. Everybody knows each other, but there's this seedy underbelly. Annie is part of its dark history, which is very Twin Peaks-esque. And I liked that a lot. I really loved how this was shot, specifically when you get to the cabin, and at first it's a wide shot, and the music is very calming, and Annie's very sweet, but the second she turns into evil Annie, the lighting gets super harsh on her face. The camera is down here, and you're facing up at her, and her face takes up the whole screen in this really menacing, evil kind of look. When they would flip to Paul, he had a lot more room around him, and they shot him with the camera pointing down at him, so he seemed small and he was intimidated and little compared to Annie, who was big and menacing. So I thought their use of camera angles and lighting and music to kind of convey the difference in the characters and the moments that they were in were perfect. This movie didn't have a lot of special effects, but what it did have, I thought, paid off really well, especially in the hobbling scene. when she takes a sledgehammer. First of all, I don't know how he recovered from all of these injuries so quickly, and all he had was a limp. That to me is shocking. Anyway, when she hobbles his one ankle, they show it for a brief second, and it is just so, like, it looks so real how they did that. But they only show it for a brief second. I feel like if this movie was done now, they would have really shown the ankle, but that was terrifying. Seemed so real. And even another moment that paid off really well is when she shoots the sheriff in the back, like almost point blank with the rifle, with the shotgun, the 2-barrel shotgun. The hole left in the sheriff's body was like this big, and it just looked so real. So I thought, even though it was like there were little special effects and makeup, they were done really well. And I think that's important. If you're gonna have them done well practically. Even if you can't show them for a long time, because maybe if you do or get close, they don't look as good. So I think they utilized the camera and everything very well to showcase the special effects makeup. I mean, all this being said, Annie did theoretically save his life, because I'm sure that if he was left in that car, he would have died. So I think maybe it was a miracle that she was stalking him. She did save his life. But when she tells Paul, like, he's like, oh, it's a miracle you found me. And she's like, oh, I was just, I know you go up there to write your book, and I knew you were going up there. So I would just, like, take a drive up there and watch you from your window. And I followed you home. And the look on Paul's face is like he doesn't care. Like, that's the first moment I'd be like, this lady is suspicious and weird. But he seems to, oh, of course you can read my book. Of course you can do it. You saved my life. Maybe that was clouding his head. But he seemed to just not care that this lady was stalking him at his hotel. I mean, just to finish up my thoughts, I honestly, at the end, didn't really care what happened to Paul, and I'll tell you why. Annie brings in her pet pig, who she named Misery, and Paul is like, doesn't want anything to do with the pig. He doesn't pet the pig. The pig is so cute, and Paul doesn't care about it. And I'm like, I could care less what happens to Paul now. How dare this cute little animal come in here and you're just like, you don't care. Is what going to do, eat you? It's not going to eat you, Paul. It's a little pig. Well, it was a big pig. But still, after that, I didn't care what happened to Paul. He could have died for all I cared. I didn't care. You don't pet the pig, you're dead to me. So my final thoughts on Misery are interesting, because as I was watching it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was okay. Good for what it was. I was thoroughly entertained. But after the fact, I honestly couldn't even remember it. Like, I was like, what's that guy's name? What's her name? Like, I remembered their performances, but I couldn't really remember this movie. And to me, that makes it seem kind of forgettable, which is sad, because in the 90s, this was proclaimed, and maybe even still now, greatest horror thrillers of all time. And to me, it just kind of seemed seemed forgettable. So I will not rewatch this, although I'm glad I watched it. It's not one that I'm going to put in again, and surprising to you, because I do have it on special edition. You would think this is my favorite movie and I watch it all the time, but probably never going to watch this again. But if you haven't seen it, I think it's definitely worth at least one watch. And maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. All right, so we're into week 3 of Community Choice. This was in second place for top voted movie. It is one of my all-time favorites. I think it's definitely in my top 5 horror films. I've seen it recently, and that is The Shining. I love this film. I first watched it maybe 7 years ago, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I was terrified. I had nightmares. And this is the 4K edition, and I'm excited to see kind of what this looks like. I'm sure it was was rescanned, so I'm really excited to kind of see the quality of the picture in this. When it comes to Stanley Kubrick, I don't love his directing style. I don't love how he tortured this poor woman to get a performance out of her. I don't feel like as a director you need to do that. I mean, take David Lynch, for example. He gets great performances, terrified performances out of people and treats them like human beings. So, but I mean, Stanley is a very talented director. 2001: A Space Odyssey will blow your mind if you have not seen it. But yeah, this is next week's movie. Excited to rewatch it and very excited to see it in 4K. All right, that about wraps it up for this week's spooky movie discussion. If you want to join us for the viewing party of The Shining, we're going to do that on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in the Discord. Or if you want to join us for the live discussion, we'll do those on Saturdays on my Twitch channel, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to leave links below so you could join the Discord or follow me on Twitch. We're running through the Resident Evil 2 remake as Claire. I had a lot of fun the first week we played it. I put it on easy mode, and I was just shooting zombies. It was a blast. So I hope you could join us for one of those, but if not, no worries. I'll be back here on Sunday with the review.